Spencer Pratt couldn't spit that out. Is putting on a master class in Los Angeles. He is going to win that race on June 2nd unless the fix is in. The Democrats cannot win legitimate elections anymore, and he is giving the reason why. We're going to get into that today. This is The Ordinary American. I'm your host, Paul Sarkis. This is an anti-leftist show. If you are voting for Democrats, which is the leftist party, you are choosing to break yourself into jail, and you're breaking other people into jail. Not okay. All right, there's so much going on. It's Forgiveness Friday. We're going to get into that. I've got my One Nation Under God t-shirt on, my favorite t-shirt. We're going to get into some Matt Walsh. We're going to get into some Trump. I was going to, before I get into the Spencer Pratt stuff, I just want to start with one thing. I like Promethean action. Susan Kokinda, Barbara Boyd, Adam Sturman, Mike Stager, I think it is, and I forget, there's another guy, I always forget his name. He's in the science department. But Susan Kokinda said something on yesterday's show, and I want to play it because it's a sort of a summary of the American system pulled out in terms of everyday life. So let's listen to this.
Go back to what I opened with. The issue is the American system versus the British system. That has been the issue in the world for 250 years because it's based on two competing images of man. The British system says you're an animal. You can be manipulated on the basis of ideologies, your perceptions, your senses. The American system says you're in the image of the Creator, and your responsibility is to continue his creation. That's the fight. Measure everything against that. And if we do, we'll make it through the midterms. Okay.
If you listen to nothing else over the weekend, but you hear that, that's a productive weekend. What Susan Kokinda is saying there is so important. It's the competing ideas of man, of humans. Okay, in the image of God, we talked the other day, pardon me, Thomas Jefferson wrote for the first time, all men are created equal. That was not a belief in the world. Nobody believed that. Not the peasants, not the royals, not the nobles, nobody. The emperors, the dukes, whatever they called themselves, the counts, none of them believed that they were equal with the peasants. The Americans did. Keep in mind that all the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were the people who had the most to lose. The American Revolution, they had the most to lose. Why? Because of what Susan's saying here. The system that they were going against was a system that didn't see people as equal or endowed by their creator. It was a government who gave rights. There are still people here in America. There's a senator, it was a Warner, one of these idiots over the last year or so said that essentially that governments give the rights. No, man gives us our right. God gives man his rights. And when you have that point of view, that is different. And that's what the American system is fighting for. And that's what we're fighting for. So I wanted to open up with that. We'll bookend that with Forgiveness Friday. Now I want to get right back to the Spencer Pratt thing. The Spencer Pratt thing just jacks me up because I lived in LA for close to 20 years. My wife and I moved there. We didn't have any children. We had our child. We only have one child. We had our child there. We left when our daughter was about 12. So we had all those early years. That's one of the things that he's talking about. And we're going to get to a second clip after this. But he's tapping into the very simple stuff of day-to-day life. Moms in LA are extremely important because they're vocal and they're like, tiger moms. They're protecting their cubs. Park life in LA is a massive thing. It is hard to overstate the value of parks to parents in Los Angeles. Sometimes it's just on the weekend. Sometimes it's if they're younger before school, they're going to the park every single day. It's a place where parents can, take a break and let their kid run wild for a little while. When you've taken that away, LA becomes essentially you're living in a box. You don't have so you don't have the beautiful part of Southern California, which is the outdoors. He's tapping into that. He's giving a master class. Okay, it's also important because the big Washington, D.C. stuff, China, Xi, Putin, Iran, tax policies on the national level, these are big concepts, and they are hard sometimes for us to synthesize down to how does it affect me. Taxes, we can do that better. But how does it affect me? Well, gas prices, okay, that's true too. But as de Tocqueville wrote in Democracy in America, subsidiarity, one of the things that separated America was the decisions were made at the most local point. The founders wrote a system that was based on that. The reason why this mayor's election in Los Angeles is so important for the country is it's giving us all a chance to see what leftism, Democrat Party, looks like after too many years in power. And we're not talking about the Biden and the Obama, the big macro stuff from the presidential view. We're talking about the park. I want to take my daughter to the park today. Well, I can't. Why can't I? Because they're smoking fentanyl. And I don't want her to breathe it in or me to breathe it in. I don't want her to see a dead dog because the dead dog breathed in the drugs. Okay, I don't want to see that behavior. I don't want my daughter to have to, by a mistake, land on a needle. It's just, we can get down to that local level. And what you're seeing is the Dan Bongino observation. When it gets bad enough, people will change. Spencer Pratt's a Republican, true? Well, let me rephrase that. He's running as a Republican. I don't think he would consider himself a Republican or a Democrat. He's just a citizen that wants to fix his city. He picked a party because he's got to pick a party, and he did that. As he says, the only people who don't like him are the socialists and the lunatic leftists. True. All right, so he's been doing these series of ads. I think this is one that he made, but we're going to play this one. Let me see. Do I have it up yet? No. Okay, here we go. This is brilliant stuff. Watch. Wait, I have it. No, okay. I sometimes play the videos, by the way, at 1 1/4 speed if people are talking a little slower so I can fit more in. Not this ad.
It's not my fault the Palisades burned down.
Hello?
It's not my fault
Yo!
Pratt's house burned
Sup?
down.
Nothing, P. Just watching the debate highlights, drinking some liberal tears. What's up with you? None. Just watching the debate highlights, thinking of how I can help Los Angeles, drinking some liberal tears. True. True.
It's Spencer Pratt's fault that his house burned down.
Yo, who's that? Yo, pick up the phone. Hello? What's up? Yo, where's JD? Yo, JD. Yo. What's up? Hey, hold on. Hello?
It's Spencer Pratt's fault that his house burned down. Los Angeles is the safest and cleanest place on earth because of me.
So what's up, P? None. Just watching Karen Bass make excuses why my house burned down. Sipping on liberal tears. Wondering why LA still looks like a damn war zone full of pooping needles. True. True.
All the homes are gone because of climate change. When the fires are out, I'll build a brand new LA. Here's $700. Land grab is underway. California's burning. And the fire department's gay.
Good night, peasants. Okay, mocking the left. I'm going to leave that up for just a second. I like that picture. That's it for some of us. We remember the What's Up ads. I think it was Bud Light. I don't remember. One of the beer companies. And they did that version. What's up? And all the guys are talking. They're using that like he used the Prince of Bel-Air, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air the other day in another ad. He's using nostalgia. He's mocking them, but he's mocking them in a way that everybody understands. The fire, burning the house down, the poop, and then the peasant sign. Why? Because they don't live like that. They don't live like that. In their neighborhoods, everything's clean. That's their system. That's a brilliant ad. He's changed politics forever. Forever. Okay? So when you're thinking about like, can Spencer Pratt win? Can Spencer Pratt win? Spencer Pratt has it won now if A, people go to vote, and B, the Democrats don't completely corrupt it. Now, the Democrats are going to corrupt it. As I told you the other day, my uncle who was a bookmaker, and when he was collecting, he would say, you can pay me now, you can do slow pay, but there's no pay. With the Democrats, there's no corruption. There's no corruption. There's always going to be corruption. It's just a question of, will the citizens of Los Angeles get out in big enough numbers to overwhelm the system? I think that they will. I think that they will because the neighborhoods are so bad. The Democrats have gone so far. They have destroyed the place. And people like moms going to parks. By the way, dogs and parks, if you don't live in LA, it's hard to sort of grasp. Massive sort of driver of society or social circles. Dog walkers in LA, they have giant vans, industrial type vans where they'll pick up 20 dogs from people and drive them to the parks and exercise them. It's a real business. Okay, people take their dogs seriously. So when he touches into that, dogs are getting killed by the drug addicts. It's not a small issue. Unbelievable. All right. The other day, Chelsea Handler, if you know her, I'm not going to go into who she is. She's some kind of a celebrity, comedian, whatever. She basically came out and said, he sucks and don't vote for him. I'm oversimplifying, but that's the message. Now, he's on the Billy Bush show here, and he responds to that. So just listen to how he does it. It's a little bit longer. I'll probably stop it and go back to it.
So, lady, again, I'm fine with not getting that vote. I don't think she's a mom with kids going to the park. I keep saying, you don't have a kid in LA right now. You may not be as concerned about your kids inhaling fentanyl smoke at the swing or stepping on a needle. I don't think she has a dog. Maybe she doesn't have a dog because these dogs are even ODing from smelling fentanyl at the parks, or licking it. It's insane. Here's what people forget. I get 1,000 videos a day all across Los Angeles. Most of them I can't post because it's naked drug addicts, and you can't blur it because they're running. You can't blur it. I don't have the technology. Maybe they have an app I need to get because they move fast.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah.
So
this is at 1.25x speed, just so you know. People
are having sex on the side, meth addicts having sex on the sides of the street where kids are going in the car to
gross.
School. For instance, a legendary NBC executive who I didn't even think we were cool because we had a little beef back in the day. He's now my biggest supporter because he said he was driving in Toluca Lake the other day and his kids saw 3 meth heads having sex on the sidewalk and he had to explain what was happening. And he called me up and he said, I am doing anything I possibly can to get you elected.
Okay, I'm going to cut it there. Billy knows the guy. It's some guy, I forget his name, some head guy at NBC. The reason why I mentioned that it's some head guy at NBC is because that means that he's likely been voting Democrat his whole professional career. Why? Because they have to in that business. That's where everything goes. All the fundraisers, if you go to a party, if you go to a work event, you have to be on board with that stuff. He's bringing this up because he's got those kinds of people, the people who've been paying to get the Democrats in control. He's got them saying, I'm with you. Why? Because it's bad enough. And the other two this week, if you've seen, let me finish that sentence. I do that a lot. The other two have no policies. Okay, finish that. If you've seen the episodes this week, the Democrats are a criminal organization. They've got nothing but tyranny. Trump's finishing all family business. It all has to deal with the same thing, which is there isn't anything. There is no policy. That's Lola, if you hear her in the background. That's not me farting. Yes, Lola, we hear you. There's no policies that the Democrats have that anybody wants. The policies that the Democrats have got LA to where it is. So Karen Bass being like a Muppet saying, oh yes, we have not got where we want to go, but we're going to get there. That's too late. It's way too late. It's way too late. And the people in LA are essentially rising up. The only thing they have left, and you're now seeing it, is they're trying to sort of tie him to Trump, or they tried this thing with Bel Air. nonsense. He just did this great thing. He showed the estimate for the fence that LA required him to put around his property. And I think he showed the bill that they paid from the Bel Air Hotel. The fence was over $50,000. The bill was like $15,000. So he was making the comparison that when it's costing more to do what the city wants you to do on your thing, that on your property, your burnt out property, than it does just to stay at a hotel, he's saving money. The left has no policies. This whole thing in LA, it is a major national issue because we all get to see what the end stages of leftism start to look like. And by the way, if he doesn't win, today is the best LA will be for 50 years. It'll be gone, like Detroit, gone. I don't know what will happen with the entertainment industry. I suspect it'll bleed out and they'll end up in Miami or Texas or Atlanta or some other places, or just spread out. But people right now, I suspect, are on the edge. Are we going to leave or are we going to stay? Well, if Spencer Pratt gets in, we're going to stay. If he doesn't, we're going to leave. I suspect that's a major, major dynamic. So that's why I show this stuff, is that it is not a small deal. It is not a sort of a mayor's race. It's not just like, oh, hey, look, it's a mayor's race. Okay, I'm going to transition to some other things, but we're going to keep our eye on that. That's June 2nd. Now, here's an issue that relates to LA. I've mentioned quite a lot that we don't really know what the housing markets are like in these leftist controlled places like LA. We get told all the time we need affordable housing, and we see nonprofits scamming us, taking our money, spending $800,000, $700,000, $1 million for one unit of affordable housing. Okay. And then when you get into it, now we're starting to see, because people are doing the research, that nonprofit behind it made $4 million on that one unit. All right. Not okay. But I've been saying, I'm not the only one. What's been happening with the illegals is the illegals are getting shoved into these places like LA. That increases demand for housing. Obviously, there are people there, they need housing. That increases just the demand for housing. Then what we didn't know, we were told this wasn't happening until we were told, oh yeah, it is happening, but it's good that it's happening. They're getting our tax dollars to go fund their purchase or their rent of a home. So not only are there more people, illegals shouldn't be here, jacking up the supply-demand curve, they're bringing with them our tax dollars. So the government steals our money, gives it to the illegals. By the way, they didn't tell us that. We didn't get to vote on that. They just do it through nonprofits and other ways. And then when we go into the market to buy a home with our remaining tax dollars, which the government has inflated away by money printing, we're at a distinct disadvantage because we've given away our money to the illegals so they can compete against us. It's insane. This is going to be Matt Walsh talking about this very issue. He breaks it down really simply, and I want to play it so we all.
This week, I started doing foreclosures on undocumented properties. I just left one. Pizza boxes open. Pizza was still there. All the food was still in the pantry. They grabbed whatever valuables they could, left everything else behind. These are foreclosures. So these are homes that were bought using FHA, guaranteed by the government for undocumented people. Last month, over 252,000 people were deported in Texas alone. So all of a sudden, we're starting to see the effects now.
Under the Biden administration, the Federal Housing Administration began insuring mortgages by private lenders to non-citizens. These loans are intended for low-income Americans, but instead, foreigners, people who are not even citizens, are getting them. Yes, non-citizens, even if they didn't have a steady income or collateral or good credit, have been walking into new homes by putting only 3.5% down. So while you were doing the responsible thing and saving up $80,000 to put down on your $400,000 home, an illegal alien only had to spend around $14,000 for the same home. That's what you've been competing against.
And what we're finding out is that in many cases, the $14,000 came from us too. That's not, first of all, it's not okay. It's unjust. As I keep on, Bukele, Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, I was having a conversation this morning with somebody, and I was pointing out that he makes the best observation of all. Why do you have to pay taxes if they're going to print whatever they want? Okay, how does that affect this? Because they steal our money through taxes. They want to take more and more all the time. And then they give it to illegals who shouldn't be in the country in the first place. They jack up the cost of the places I need to buy or rent. And then I have to go do that with inflated dollars that are buying less every year. We're taking it from both ends, right in the teeth, right in the back of the skull. It's absolutely unjust. We're now seeing in some of these places, and that guy with the New York Yankees hat was saying it, we're starting to see, because they're being deported or they're leaving voluntarily, we're starting to see the housing market start to correct in some of these places. Austin is a place where prices have come way down. Los Angeles, I think, is a place coming down. The great Nick Gurley, he is Gerli. He's on Twitter. You can look in my Twitter feed, The Ord American. He talks a lot about this. He doesn't go into the politics of it, but he shows that these markets are changing. And what we really need to make housing affordable is lower housing prices. It is great, and we do want the interest rate to drop. But when you do the math, the interest rate dropping isn't as meaningful as the price dropping. The price will drop as these markets become undistorted by removing the illegals. Then they don't have our money to spend and drive the prices up. That's happening in LA, and people are beginning to see it. Of course, the other part is the supply. We need way more houses. And hopefully Spencer Pratt can do that by making the process of building a house easier. We'll find out. All right. I want to transition. So one of the things that certainly people like me, people in this side of the world, the MAGA sphere, the Dan Bonginos, the Sean Hannitys, the Vince Colonases, people with this view. One of the things that we've been saying is that if there aren't consequences, why wouldn't people keep doing it? Whatever the thing is, look at your own life. When there are no consequences, we tend to keep doing things. Humans aren't great sort of self-correctors without some kind of a consequence. Sometimes the consequence is, geez, I don't like the way I look in the mirror. I'm going to lose a little weight. Yeah, that's a consequence. Okay. Sometimes it's bigger. Now, with all these scams that have been going on, with all of the fraud and the theft of our tax dollars, we've just begun to see some people get indicted and then have punishments. There's this woman, I'm going to play this, and I believe it's Minnesota. I think it's Amy Bach. And she just got sentenced to 41 years in jail. Just listen to this.
A Minnesota judge has just sentenced the mastermind behind the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, Amy Bach. She just got more than 41 years in prison. The prosecution is asking for a 50-year sentence and her defense about 3 years. So that's somewhere in the middle that they got that, but closer to what obviously the prosecution wanted. The scheme involved the theft of nearly $250 million in COVID funding. That money was meant to feed hungry children. State leaders claim they were unaware of the fraud. Here's what Amy Bach told our Alexis McAdams from jail back in January.
I honestly believe Keith Ellison and Governor Walz need to be held accountable. There needs to be an investigation done. If they weren't aware, that's concerning.
By the way, yeah. Hopefully there is. Now just take a look at this and you tell me. I noticed the headline. This is the mastermind. Why would they say mastermind? You gotta read these things, unfortunately, with the deviousness of a Democrat. Why would they call her a mastermind? Because they want you thinking that she did it on her own. They want you thinking that woman came up with the scam, figured it out on her own, put all the pieces together, had all the connections in the right departments, convinced everybody, and got away with it. That's what they want you to think. Now, the prosecution, as you heard, asked for 3 years. Excuse me. The defense asked for 3 years. Prosecution asked for 50. That's a changing kind of the way things have been going on. Why? Because when the Democrats have been in control, the prosecution goes and asks for 1 year. So somebody in this position stole $250 million. They might think, well, listen, I might do 1 year in prison if I can keep my money and keep my mouth shut. This person just got 41 and a half years or whatever it was, 40 plus years. That's a long time. Why is that significant? Because I've watched enough cops and bad guy shows to know that she now has an incentive, if she hasn't already, to start to inform on whoever was working with her. I don't believe she was the mastermind. That's baloney. Lola agrees. Yes. Total, absolute baloney. Okay? Now, here's the message that the Trump administration and the MAGA people and everybody who's trying to fix America is trying to send. If you are somebody like this woman who have been, for whatever reason, got caught up and you got involved in these frauds, you're likely to get caught, and you're not likely to get 1 year or 2 years or probation or 3 years. You might get 40 years. You better go now and make a deal. You better go right now before the line gets long, because at a certain point, there's a tipping point. I've watched the cop shows. It's like, at the beginning, everybody's saying, no, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to be a rat. And then when the reality sets in, everybody starts to go in and try to make a deal. The prosecution only needs one. That's all they need. Don't be late. Don't be late, Democrats who have been doing this. Don't be late. Now, there's one other. I'm just going to put it up briefly because this woman that we just showed, this Amy Bach, isn't the only one. Look at this one. Violet Malian. I don't know if I'm saying that right. A doctor in California has been found guilty of carrying out a $45 million fraud scheme where she falsely billed Medicare for unnecessary Botox injections before altering patient records to cover her tracks. She now faces up to 20 years in prison. This is just one fraudulent doctor. Imagine how many more out there. A doctor, okay? She faces 20 years. 20 years is a lot different than a slap on the wrist. I don't know, who taught her how to do this, who worked with her. I promise you, they're giving to Democrats or they're paying tribute to somebody else. This stuff doesn't go on in a vacuum. Doesn't go on in a vacuum. The corruption goes top to bottom. This is what some of us mean when we say things are happening slowly, not as fast as I would like, but things are happening and things are changing. That is very different. The message is going to start to go out, and all these defense attorneys out there are going to start to say to their clients, holy moly, I don't know, you might be looking at 40 years. Or we go in and you tell them who's up the ladder. We'll wait and see. If we start to see some of this stuff where we start to see bigger fish start to get indicted, we'll know that that's happening. Okay? Things are happening. Things are changing. All right. Before we get into Forgiveness Friday, I saw this. I don't know if I'm going to play the whole thing because it's kind of long, but it's somebody's using animation and they're making, and I think I sped it up. Did I speed it up? Yeah, I put it at 1 1/4. Let's just listen to this. It's essentially Elon Musk mocking Canada. Here we go.
Elon, invest in Canada. Honestly, at this point, I should just offer England $50 and a lifetime Tesla premium subscription to buy Canada outright. Could probably fix the whole place in a long weekend. Step 1, build pipelines. Step 2, fire half the consultants. Step 3, ban government agencies from using the phrase stakeholder engagement framework.
The world is becoming more divided and dangerous,
especially for anyone insane enough to try building in Canada.
Canada offers stability and strong partnerships.
Your version of partnership is taxes, subsidies, activist vetoes, and paperwork stacked to the moon.
That's unfair.
No, unfair is having some of the richest natural resources on Earth and managing them like a collapsing university diversity office.
Responsible governance requires balance.
It requires adults who understand economics instead of people addicted to regulation and press releases.
Canada is committed to growth.
You have oil, gas, hydro, minerals, farmland, and world-class engineers. And somehow your national strategy became kill pipelines, inflate housing into a Ponzi scheme, and pray taxpayers can subsidize the collapse.
Canada is building a cleaner future.
China burns more coal in a week than Canada offsets in a decade. You're not saving the planet. You're strangling your own economy while pretending moral superiority is an industrial policy.
Elon.
All right. This, to me, by the way, Thomas Sowell talks about that all the time. Moral superiority, that's what they want. They're not interested in growing an economy. They're not interested in prosperity. The left needs everybody to suffer. And the way they do that is they tap into people's desire to be self-righteous and to be morally superior. I'm going to save the planet. I'm going to, make the environment more clean. You're not making the environment more clean. You're being used like a tool. Anybody who's voting for Democrats, you've been used for years. Lola's a little out of breath over there. Okay. And that is great because it mocks them. Canada has so many natural resources. Alberta, which wants to become, I think, the 51st state, Canada will hold on tight because a lot of the oil and gas is in Alberta, and they can't afford to lose it. Why? Because of what Dan Bongino says about contrast. If Alberta goes from Canada to the US and prosperity reigns, that's a great contrast. That's why the Democrats can't let Pratt get a hold of LA. They can't allow us all to see that, oh, you can fix this. It doesn't have to be like this. This is what you just saw. That is a great takedown of the left. You're addicted to regulations, taxes, etc. There's no prosperity in that. The American system, what Susan Kinda was talking about at the beginning, the American system, which is MAGA, is about finding prosperity for the American citizen by building things. You are what you make. Building factories, using our great economy that every country in the world wants a part of. By the way, how can I say that? I got pushback from an idiot lefty the other day saying, oh, that's so arrogant. What's arrogant about it? Everybody wants to break into our country. Everybody wants to steal our money. They have been stealing our money. Everybody wants to be here and take over our government. Everybody wants to be here. All Trump is doing is he's saying, great, we want you to be here, but we're going to want you to be here under our terms. Our terms are that you're going to invest a huge amount of money to build jobs for our people. Okay, and then we're going to build our supply chain of critical pieces, medicines, technology that we control. That's the American system. All right. Fired up Friday. All right, I want to get to Forgiveness Friday. I'm watching the clock. Forgiveness Friday, I love forgiveness has been a huge tool in my life. I've needed it. I've come to it later in life. I've had to learn what it really means. Today, I'm not going to go into the tutorial. Maybe I'll share my own story maybe in another day. But it is not a one-time thing. It is not I forgive you, move on. Why? Because the real serious things that we have all been, subjected to, and we've all been the victims of stuff, they're going to require sometimes daily, but weekly, monthly, constant forgiveness. And what I'm going to show today, I'm going to share, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend that you do. Booker T. Washington's great Up From Slavery. Okay, I am going to share, wait a second, where is it? I got to find it. Maybe I can't find it. Hold on. No, that's not, that is it. Okay, hold on. All right. Booker T. Washington wrote a book called Up From Slavery. Booker T. Washington was a slave, okay? Booker T. Washington was then a freed slave. He went on to do great things. He went on to found the Tuskegee Institute. And some of the amazing things that you can read in Up From Slavery, by the way, it's not a long book. You can read it in a few hours. It's very well worth it. Is he used to walk from Alabama, where Tuskegee is, to New England to raise money. And he would get cash from New Englanders who wanted to support him building a college to help the freed slaves get an education. He couldn't do it in the South, obviously, Democrats. He would go to the North before they became crazy lefty, and he would raise money, and he would have to walk back down. I mean, walking from Alabama to Massachusetts, and he did this more than once. He did it several times. And then he built Tuskegee by having the freed Black slaves and the children of the freed Black slaves that wanted an education to first make bricks, then build buildings with those bricks. It's an amazing story. That's not why I'm bringing this up. I'm going to show this because I think it's in the first chapter. There's this quote, and I want to read it. I might have to get my glasses. Yeah, I'm going to have to get my glasses. All right. Then, when we rid ourselves of prejudice or racial feeling and look facts in the face, we must acknowledge that notwithstanding the cruelty and moral wrong of slavery, the 10 million Negroes inhabiting this country, who themselves or whose ancestors went through the school of American slavery, are in a stronger and more hopeful condition, materially, intellectually, morally, and religiously, than it is true of an equal number of Black people in any other portion of the globe. This is so to such an extent that Negroes in this country who themselves or whose forefathers went through the school of slavery are constantly returning to Africa as missionaries to enlighten those who remained in the fatherland. This, I say, not to justify slavery. On the other hand, I condemn it as an institution, as we all know that in America it was established for selfish and financial reasons, and not from a missionary motive, but to call attention to a fact and to show how Providence so often uses. All right? This is a guy who was a slave. He didn't know when he was born. I can't even remember. I'm not even sure if he really knew who his father was. Let me take that down. How does that play out to forgiveness? I think it's pretty obvious. If you were a slave, wouldn't you need forgiveness? Not to go on a rampage and kill everybody who enslaved you? He had forgiveness, obviously. He also talks about divine providence. Okay? He doesn't say slavery is okay. It was not. But he's saying that given that it existed and it wasn't just in America, it was everywhere, the people who got to America and then survived and got through what he called the school of American slavery were way better off than other Blacks in places around the globe. And so much so that they would go back to where their ancestors came from and be missionaries, which they would never have been able to do. Missionaries meaning preaching God, preaching the word of God, okay, which they would have never been able to do if they had not been in America. Forgiveness. If Booker T. Washington can use forgiveness, I can use forgiveness. I think about this all the time when I'm struggling and I need to find it. Again, forgiveness is for me. The slave owners, they probably didn't care. They still felt self-righteous and that they should have the slaves. The forgiveness was for Booker and for everybody else that he taught it to. The forgiveness is for me. I was with one of my small groups, a Bible study group, and we were talking about this. It's for me. I don't have to tell the other person usually. I can just forgive them. But sometimes I have to do it over and over. Can you imagine throughout the course of his life how many times Booker T had to forgive the white slave owners? If he can forgive them, then I can forgive people in my life. That's how I try to look at it. And that's one of the lessons I take from it. I also take the lesson that divine providence, we can't know what plan God has for us. And sometimes we think we're being punished. Certainly slaves would feel that they were being punished back in the early, in mid 1800s in America. And it's hard not to see that that's punishment, but it's God's plan. Some people don't live very long. Some people die horrible deaths. It's scary and it's hard, but it's through forgiveness that I don't get consumed with anger and hatred and resentment. And I try to remember that on Forgiveness Friday, try to pass it on. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a guy who turned on a camera who's trying to share his own experiences. I got a great flag. I got my God. I love my family, and I've got my country. That's it. If you are somebody who have God in your life, thumbs up. If you don't, maybe you'll explore it. What I say, what's been true for me, is the greatest life hack I ever have found is finding a relationship with God. All right, that's Forgiveness Friday. I do want to share one more thing that came from the great Ned over in the UAE. Again, some of you may know who he is, but he wants to stay semi-anonymous for the moment. Ultimately, what he is saying is the American oil and gas industry right now is printing money. And that's great for them. And so as long as that can go on, more jobs, more exploration, more GDP growth, et cetera, here. So even though we're paying a ton for gas, $4.29 or whatever I paid the other day, there are trade-offs. There are trade-offs, and that maybe this, my sense, if I want to end it quickly, what Ned would say, and what he's doing is mimicking what he's hearing from Middle East countries, is the Middle East countries and Israel are now on the same page, which is they want the Iranian regime gone, even though Trump says it's maybe not going to be regime change. The rest of them want the regime gone, totally. They don't trust the Iranians. They don't think you can leave any of them around. But they'll just keep growing. It'll be like Wolverine growing, after he gets shot, it'll keep on getting better. We're going to wait and see. Trump is doing great things. He did he settled with the IRS. I mentioned this the other day, $1,776,000,000, and he's going to give it to the people who were affected. People are getting, some lefties are pissed off about that. Why? He could have taken that money for himself. Now he's helping people. You don't like that he's helping people because you wouldn't and you aren't helping him or helping people. You lefties, you're stealing money like those people I already showed, taking the Medicare money and the Medicaid money and the food for children money and all the scams you're taking. All right, I'm gonna shut it down. It's Friday. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Spend time with your family. Spend time with your pets, with your dog people. If you're in LA, you got to vote for Pratt. If you're not voting for Pratt, you're either retarded or you're in on the scams. Don't be either one. Vote for Pratt. And we're going to see you back here on Monday. Father Mike Schmitz, I had him in my ears this morning. It was great. He's like a brother, even though I don't know him. He said he was going to pray for me. He asked me to pray for him. I'm going to say, please root for me. I'm rooting for you. Have a great day. We'll see you